How about now? I'll use that deep resonant voice. Yeah. That I really don't have. Okay. So usually I use the head mic, and the reason for that is because I lose this thing all the time. So if I should happen to get it too far away or you can't hear, just flag me down and I'll try to come back into compliance, okay? So tonight we're going to start Numbers, and that means we leave Leviticus. And for some of you, that will be a treat. But for me, Leviticus was a wealth of new things. It was a source of just deep realization of what God means to us and how he loves us and the sacrifice that he brought to us. So tonight we start Numbers. And I used to tell my student teachers at Seton Hill, be prepared when a plan breaks down. Well, tonight my plans broke down. So they said go to plan B, so this is plan B. So buckle up. Here we go. All right. The principal character of the book of Numbers, I'll ask this question first. What is or who is the principal character in the book of Numbers? Pardon me? Moses? Aaron? Actually, it's God. Shouldn't surprise you. It's like in Sunday school, you know, when the Sunday school teacher asks a question, the correct answer is always Jesus, right? Always. So there are 5 different ways he's going to reveal himself in the book of Numbers. And I want to share these with you. First, his presence. God exists and extends himself so as to abide with his people. His revelation. God relates and reveals himself to humanity. His faithfulness. God is for his people and keeps his promises. His holiness. God is holy and unchanging, and he demands sanctity from his followers. And his uniqueness and his exclusiveness, which we don't think of very often, because God is singular. He's one of a kind. He's the only God. And he will not endure the worship of other forms of deities. So those are just some of the basics that we're going to cover in Numbers, but not tonight. We won't be able to cover all those tonight. Balaam noted back in Numbers 23, verses 19 to 20, God is not a man that he should lie, nor is he a son of man that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? I have received a command to bless. He is blessed, and I cannot change it. No misfortune is seen in Jacob, no misery observed in Israel. The Lord their God is with them. The shout of the king is among them. When I read this scripture, and I've read it numerous times in the past couple of weeks, this last phrase just jumped out at me. The shout of the king is with them, is among them. And the thought came to me, wouldn't it be tremendous if the shout of the king, we sang the song tonight, the king is in the room. Wouldn't it be tremendous if the shout of the king was here every Sunday morning? Wouldn't it be fantastic if the shout of the king were here on Wednesday nights? Wouldn't it be fantastic if the shout of the king would be in our prayer closets? Something to think about. That's what God spoke to me when I read that scripture. This was Balaam, who was asked by Balak to pronounce a curse on Israel, and he couldn't do it. It's one of the characters we talked about, the characteristics. God is for us. Numbers opens up with this comment. Ve'deber Yahweh el Moshe lamor. It's Hebrew. What it really means is, then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying. Now, I want to ask you to repeat that because I had to practice that numerous times. We don't have time for everybody to get it right, and I probably didn't get it right. This divine communication is mentioned 150 times in 20 different ways in the book of Numbers. Think about that. God speaking. How many of you remember the E.F. Hutton commercial? Anybody remember that? You know, only us people who had the black and white TVs probably remember this, all right? But the comment was always made, or the punchline was, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen, and heads would turn. Well, in Numbers, God speaks 150 times in 20 different ways. Sometimes he spoke to Moses, most of the time, as a matter of fact. Sometimes he spoke to Aaron, and a very few times he spoke to Miriam. Numbers serves, it's the fourth book in the Pentateuch, but it serves as a pivotal document around which turn the history and the future of the Israeli people. It goes from the sojourning generation, or the generation that fled out of Egypt, to the generation that would follow Joshua into the promised land. So it's a pivotal, it's very important. The timeline is amazing. Now think about this. The book of Exodus, all the things that happened, about a year. The book of Leviticus, the giving of all the rules and regulations, 1 month. The book of Numbers, over 38 years. It's an important book, and we should take it seriously. The title of the book is Numbers. That's what we call it. The Hebrews didn't call it Numbers. Does anybody know what they called it? I didn't know either until I read it. The wilderness, or traveling in the wilderness. So thus the opening of the first two chapters take place in the rugged Sinai Peninsula near Mount Sinai. The Israelites, for 400 years, have been under the thumb of the Egyptians. They've been told what to eat, when to eat, where to live, where to go, when to get up, when to go to sleep. They were slaves. And now, they needed to be transformed from this disorganized crowd that spilled out of Egypt into an organized army that could accomplish the task that God had set for them. Without that organization, it would not happen. Do you remember, hopefully, because we just went through Leviticus, do you remember in Leviticus how exact God was about how everything had to be ordered? There's a saying that we should never forget. Many of the things we see here on earth are shadows of things in heaven. God is an orderly God. He likes order. He doesn't like confusion unless he's sown in among his enemies. So the book of Numbers, we're going to see this disorganized crowd turned into an organized army. So let's start with chapter 1 of Numbers, verses 1 and 2. You have to forgive me. I've tried these trifocals. I left my phone on the counter. And so the print here is rather small, so I will sort of stumble through this. The Lord spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting in the desert of Sinai on the first day of the second month of the second year after the Israelites came out of Egypt. He said, "Take a census of the whole Israelite community by their clans, families, listing every man by name, one by one." One by one. In Exodus, we had a census. It was taken to determine the tribute each Israelite was going to pay, and that money would go to help support the temple and help support the priests. This particular census was meant to ascertain the number of men who were going to be available for the army. It was kind of a early draft lottery. Only your number was up, whether your number got pulled or not. Okay? The census was meant to ascertain the number of men who were fit for combat. They were counted by clans and families, and here lay the strength of the Israeli army. For any of you who are history buffs, you'll understand that in the Civil War, both the Confederacy and the Union armies, many of the men who were brought into the armies were raised in local towns and counties and communities. So when they went to battle, they fought with their friends, their neighbors, their family members. And it was determined this was a good thing because they did not want to let each other down. They fought for each other. And this was the strength of the Israeli army. So I want you to note the specificity. I try to say this word 15 times. I want you to note the specificity. That's still not right. How specific God was, okay, in his directions, in this process. He says, every man, one by one. Note, he says one by families. We see here two things. First, there's the corporate responsibility. And then there's the individual responsibility. Anytime we read the Old Testament, one of the things we ought to do is say, Lord, how does this apply to me? As a church, we have a corporate responsibility to join the army, to be the army. But the army cannot exist unless we as individuals sign up. And I think that's the big message here in chapters 1 and 2. The individual is responsible. Yes, the corporate is responsible, but the individual is responsible as well. Also note, those who numbered had to be able to serve. So when we see these fantastic numbers in a little bit, we have to understand that that wasn't the census of every man in Israel at this time. It was the census of men 20 and older who were able to serve. And there was no upper limit. They didn't say like they do today, well, you can only serve until you're 50, or you can't be drafted if you're over 35. I don't know what the rules are now. But in this day and age, in this particular time, if you were 20 and you were able, you might be called to fight. And we have a good example of this was Caleb. How old was Caleb when he went up to take the high countries? Anybody remember? He was 80. There's still hope for me. I'm getting close, but there's still hope. Let's go to verses 3 and 4. This is God speaking to Aaron, Moses now. He says, you and Aaron are to number by their divisions all the men in Israel 20 years old or more who are able to serve the army. One man from each tribe, each the head of his family, is to help you. And then he goes on and names the names. All right? So let's take a look at this. You should notice that every tribe in the nation is called. They're called and they're told to enumerate everybody from 20 who are able to fight. So there should be no doubt in this community what's down the road. We're going to war. We're going to war. And we are called Sunday after Sunday to put on the armor of God and prepare to fight the battle. Now, I'm going to beat on this, okay? And you may get tired of hearing it. But they tell us in education, you've got to say it at least 5 times for something to sink in. And 15 times if your students are dull. I'm going to try to stick to 5, okay? Forgive me. Okay, verses 5 through 16. Now, I had a visual for this. No, I don't have a visual for this. Okay, in which I was able to show you all these people without reading all these verses. So I'm going to start down through here, and after these things start repeating themselves, I'll just read the highlights. Now, there are 12 different groups here and 24 names. In my studies, I found that there are 2 different pronunciations for each one. So I may drift in and out or may not hit either of them. But I really made an attempt because I think names are important. So here we go. These are the names of the men who are to assist you. Okay? From Reuben, Elizur, son of Shedeur. From Simeon, Shemuliel, son of Zurishadaiah. From Judah, Nashon, son of Amminadab. From Issachar, Nathanael, son of Zuar. From Zebulun, Elivav. Now the B's are pronounced like V's. Son of Helon. From the sons of Joseph, from Ephraim, Elishama, son of Ammihud. From Manasseh, Gamaliel, son of Behazer. From Benjamin, Abidan, son of Gedaniah. From Dan, Eliezer, son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel, son of Okran. From Gad, Elisaph, son of Duel. And from Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. Now, most of those names, except for the patriarchs, you're not going to hear those other 12 names except for 2 of them after Numbers. And those 2 are Nashon, who is in Jesus' line of descent, or ascent, and Ishmael, who is the grandfather of Joshua. All the rest of them are names that will come in, they're important, and then they'll fade out. But what they did is very, very important. So, an elder of each tribe was to stand for the census. So if we had 12 tribes here, they would select one elder from each tribe. And these were the 12 men who were descendants of the patriarchs. Now, sometimes I used to get confused, and I'd say, well, they mentioned these 12 guys, but what happened to Levi? And what happened to Joseph? And where did Manasseh and Ephraim come from? Well, we'll try to cover all that tonight. They're listed in chapter 1, again in chapter 2 by tribal arrangement, in chapter 7 for tribal offerings, and in chapter 10 for the tribal division orders as they prepared to depart Sinai. So we're going to see these lists over and over again. They may not always occur in the same order, but they will occur. So you have to be prepared for that. The 12 who are identified were usually listed by birth, but not by their birth, but by the mother who birthed them. So Jacob had children from 4 different women, 2 wives and 2 handmaidens. The sons of Jacob through Leah were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Jacob through Rachel were Joseph. His grandsons who became leaders of tribes were Ephraim and Manasseh and Benjamin. The sons of Jacob through Leah's handmaid Zilpah were Gad and Asher. The sons of Jacob through Rachel's handmaid Bilhah were Dan and Naphtali. For some reason, Gad and Dan get mixed up in the list. But the Lord does what he wants to do when he makes lists. Now, my note says display the chart. Okay. And so it's displayed. Let's jump to verse 17. Now Moses and Aaron took these men whose names had been given, and they called the whole community together on the first day of the 2nd month. The people indicated their ancestry by their clans and families, and the men 20 years old or more were listed by name, one by one, as the Lord commanded Moses. And so he counted them in the desert of Sinai. So the eligible men were identified. Every individual male, 20 years or older, just as is listed, was counted. And here again we see the corporate and the individual responsibility. So it is with the church today. The church is the body. We have a responsibility. However, it cannot do so unless we as individuals become a functional, and that's the key word here, a functional and intentional part. Try to grasp on for those two determiners. Functional and intentional. Functional means you have to do something. Intentional It has to have a direction. It has to have order. It has to mean something. You just can't always choose what you want to do. Okay? Verses 20 through 23. And here comes another long list. And I'm going to really abbreviate this one because there's a paragraph for each tribe. And we'll read the first one, and then we'll move on by just reading the first sentence in each section. From the descendants of Reuben, the firstborn son of Israel, all the men 20 years old or more who were able to serve in the army were listed by name, one by one, according to the records of their clans and families. The number from the tribe of Reuben was 46,500. Now, you're going to hear this repeated 11 more times. We're not going to do that, unless you want to do that. You don't want to do that? Okay. From the descendants of Simeon, according to the records, I'm going to turn the page here. The number of them from the tribe of Simeon was 59,300. From the descendants of Gad, the number from the tribe of Gad was 45,650. From the descendants of Judah was 74,600. From the descendants of Issachar, 54,400. From the descendants of Zebulun, 57,400. From the sons of Joseph, from Ephraim, 40,500. And from Manasseh, 32,200. The descendants of Benjamin, 35,400. From Dan, 62,700. From Asher, 41,500. And Naphtali, 53,400. Now, I had a spreadsheet to show you this. But here's the thing. When it's all said and done, there were 603,550. That's an astronomical number. Now, when the Lord said to Adam, be fruitful and multiply, well, the Jews must have really taken this to account. Now, when the mathematicians looked at this, they said, this is a big number. So if we would take this and we would walk it out to determine how many people were in that tribe that was moving across the Sinai desert, they determined that the number of Israelites on the move was between 2 and 2.5 million people. That is a logistical boondoggle. But it also goes to show the power of our God to do things and to accomplish things. Now, as I researched this, I found that there were 6 different suggestions as to why that number was so big. 5 of those suggestions were from modern-day critics who were trying to deflate it. Okay? One said, well, they misinterpreted this word. It's only supposed to stand for 100. They thought it meant thousands. Another one said, well, it's just the way they mix up the numbers and the letters in the Jewish language, in the Jewish alphabet. That's got them confused. Well, I won't bore you with it, but there were 6. And finally, the real scholar said, you know what? I think we ought to take the number just as it is. Okay? So that's what I decided to do. That's what God decided to do. And I thought about, well, Lord, what would I say to these men who had these problems with the numbers? And he dropped this thought, I think, into my head, which is rather empty most of the time, so I had a lot of room to rattle around a little bit. He said, think of this. Do you remember how exacting I was with Moses? And how I told him how every single thing that I told him had to be exactly as I told him, and there were penalties if you deviated? Why would Moses inflate the numbers? That was one of those arguments. They said in Near East society they always inflated numbers because they wanted to make their God look bigger. Moses didn't need to make his God look bigger. He saw him part the waters of the Red Sea. He saw him provide manna. My goodness, he saw him every day in a cloud. All right? So he didn't need to embellish it. He didn't need hyperbole. So we're going to take those numbers for what they are. Whatever the final numbers were, God moved in a miraculous way to deliver the people who would be the source of his ultimate plan to redeem mankind, Jesus Christ. So when we ever hear the comment that God will move heaven or earth, he can. He can move 2.5 million people too. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right? 603,400. That number is going to change a little bit because later on they do a thing with the Levites, and they do some numbering, and they find out there's some other guys that didn't get counted, and so another 150 or so show up. But it's not a big deal. All right. Let's go to verse 44. Verse 44. As soon as I find it here. Okay. These are the men counted by Moses and Aaron and the 12 leaders of Israel, each one representing his family. All the Israelites 20 years old or more who were able to serve in Israel's army were counted according to their families. The total number was 603,550. The families of the tribe of Levi, however, were not counted along with the others. The Lord had said to Moses, "You must not count the tribe of Levi or include them in the census with the other Israelites. Instead, appoint the Levites to be in charge of the tabernacle of testimony, over all its furnishings and everything belonging to it. They are to carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings. They are to take care of it and encamp around it. Whenever the tabernacle is to move, the Levites are to take it down, and whenever the tabernacle is to be set up, the Levites shall do it. Anyone else who goes near it shall be put to death. The Israelites are to set up their tents by divisions." And I'm going to stop there. Okay? So we see here that God's going to do something a little different. All right? He takes this tribe of Levi and he sets them apart. Why did he do that? What do you think? Well, Moses was a Levite. Aaron was a Levite. Maybe they were his favorites. Maybe he said, maybe they lobbied the Lord and said, "Hey, give us some special dispensation here. Keep us out of this." I beg your pardon? Yes. In Exodus chapter 32, verses 25 and 26. Okay, 32, 25 to 26. Moses is coming down off the mountain. He's got the 10 Commandments. And there's this noise going on. And Joshua said, "Hey, sounds like there's war in the camp." And Moses says, "No, I don't think it's war." And he gets down to the bottom of the mountain. And Moses saw that the people were running wild, and that Aaron had let them get out of control and so become a laughingstock to their enemies. So he stood at the entrance of the camp and said, "Who is ever for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. And many Bible scholars believe that's why Levi was selected, because they chose the Lord, and the Lord chose them. There's I think there's a spiritual message in there someplace. Choose this day who you will serve, he says in Deuteronomy. When you choose the Lord, he chooses you, and vice versa. It's important that we do that. Although not counted for military duty, they would guard the temple and enforce the boundaries around the holy place, as the Lord directed Moses. The guidelines were strictly enforced, with violations resulting in death. Note, and this is important, a Levite and a priest were not afforded the same privileges as to access to the temple. All priests were Levites. All priests were Levites, but not all Levites were priests. Okay? The priests were from Aaron's household. All the other Levites were support personnel. The tribe of Levi would camp around the tabernacle, providing a buffer that would spare their fellow Israelites from violating the rules that God had established. Now, when you get to chapters 3 or 4, I don't know who's going to do that next week, but when you get to chapters 3 and 4, you're going to get much more information as to the role of the Levites with the tabernacle. It's pretty intense. But here we are. And I had this map I was going to show you, but we're going to have to do something a little bit differently. Okay? Could I get 5 people to come down and sit in these 2 rows? Any 5. Any 5. Thank you. 1, 2. Oh. I didn't say troublemakers. I said just 5 people. Usually the hecklers. We'll allow 6. You can come down and sit with your husband. That's okay. Okay. What I'm trying to establish are 4 things here, four different areas, okay? And leave a zone in the middle, because that's where the tabernacle is. It's in there. And if you are one of the tribes camping around the tabernacle, you do not go in there. If you're an Israel, if you're a Levite, you're encamped around that inner circle. You understand that? Okay. That's where we're going to start with chapter 2. Smile, people. You're not on Camden Canberra. You're in good shape. So the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, the Israelites are to camp around the tent of meeting, some distance from it, each man under his standard and the banners of his family. So, you were told to encamp around the tabernacle, but a distance. See, God's already establishing that he is a holy God. He is not to be approached by just anybody in any condition, only by those that he has sanctified. I've got some good news for you. He's already sanctified you. You can approach him. But you, not so much. Not so. And don't laugh, neither can you. All right? So you're all stuck out here. So, note that the same introductory statements made, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. The tribes were to camp around the tent of meeting at a distance, and then they were to display their standards and banners. And this is kind of unique because Bible commentators like to make all kind of assumptions. They try to figure out, what do those banners look like? Some say, well, Judah had to have a lion on his, and another one had an ox, and one had a serpent, and one had a cow, and another one had a sheaf of wheat. And the problem is that Scripture doesn't really tell us what was on those banners. But they were distinctive because every tribe had a standard, and every clan in that tribe had a banner. So you understand why Balak, I read about him earlier tonight. He was watching Israel approach, and he was afraid he wanted Balaam to curse him. What he saw was this massive army coming with these beautiful banners. Each family marched under their banner. So when he's setting this up, he said, everybody's going to camp under your standard of your family. There are going to be 12 standards, and under the banners of your clans. And I don't know how many of those would be, but it'd be a lot of beautiful flags. One of the best assumptions I heard in all this was that the colors, I've always had a rough time saying that word, like red, blue, green, colors. I can't say it. Anyway, those things, one of the assumptions was that each tribe, their banner would be the color of the stone in the chief priest's breastplate. That made sense to me. Whether it's true or not, I'm not going to die on that hill, but that one at least makes sense. So note, they're no longer going to be disorganized, but now going to be organized. And who's going to be in the center? Who's going to be in the center? Pardon me? And who's in the tabernacle? The presence of God. We sing that song, Jesus is the center of it all. You with me tonight? You see where I'm going with this? He's already laying the framework. He's establishing the pattern. You can surround this, but I'm here. I'm in the center. And that's what he wants to be in our lives, in the center of it. Okay? Verses 3 to 9. I think I started on 3. Okay. No, here we go. Now, here's why I wanted this arrangement. In the Western world, you people who were in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Boy Scouts, hikers, you have a compass, right? Use maps. What do we usually look for on a map before we start determining where we're going to go? True north. And then then you have to decide how far off true north really is where you're at. All right. But the cardinal direction that we're looking for is north. In Israel, not so much. In the Near East, never. You people in the East, I got to get this right now, because I'm going to have to do this backwards. Okay. You people in the East, you're the cardinal direction. Because if you remember, where is the door of the tabernacle? Pardon me? Facing east. So these people are going to be prime importance. All right? You people in the north who've been so great for so long, not so much. we will get to you in a little bit. Don't despair. So, on the east toward the sunrise, the divisions of the camp of Judah are to encamp under their standard. The leader of the people of Judah is Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. His division was 74,600. And then they're going to name the other 3 tribes. There are going to be 3 tribes over here. The tribe of Issachar will camp next to them. His division numbers were 54,400. And the tribe of Zebulun, 57,400. So the total number of people that you're going to have over here in the east of the camp is 186,400 men. That's not counting women and children. That's quite a mob over there in the east. But they have a very specific job, as we're going to find here. Okay? So next, one thing I want to point out here, notice that Judah is given he's given a prime position. You hear that saying, send Judah first? He's going first. Wherever Israel goes, Judah's going first. The tribe of Judah is going first. So we move on. On the south, and this is a small group, but we'll just magnify them by 100,000 or so. This small group right here. On the south will be the division camp of Reuben. Under their standard, the leader of the people of Reuben is Elishur, son of Shedeur. His division numbers 46,500, and there's 3 tribes here now. And the tribe of Gad has 45,650. All the men assigned to the camp of Reuben, I skipped a tribe, which one? Simeon, 59,300. Okay, I'm down to verse 16 now. This group, 151,450. So as we're getting ready to march, this is what God is setting up now. These 3 tribes, 186,000 plus, are going to move out first. That's quite a parade. And right in behind them come this group. Now, this is the vanguard. This is the group that's going to lead. Judah goes first. So we now have 6 tribes out. Got that? Tabernacle's still in the middle. Okay. Turn the page. Then the tent of meeting in the camp of the Levites will sit out in the middle of the camps. They will set out in the same order as they encamp, each one in their own place under his standard. So what we might forget about is in the center here, where the tabernacle is, there's a whole tribe of Levites. Levi had 3 sons. They comprised 3 clans. And again, I want you to, this is a diagram, but you're not going to see. One clan was situated in the north, one in the west, one in the south, and the east was left open. The only people allowed to camp there was Aaron, Moses, his sons, the priests. That was their job, to protect the entrance. All the rest of the camp was surrounded by the Levites, who were only allowed to go and touch the articles. I shouldn't say some of the articles that we're never allowed to touch. You'll get to that next week. But these Levites, they weren't allowed to go in there unless it was time for them to take that tent down or put that tent up. But they were there to protect it. So you had this inner protection. So now we go. These three tribes take out. These three tribes follow. And now the Levites and the tabernacle follow right behind them. See, so much order. We move on to the west. On the west will be the divisions of the camp of Ephraim. His division numbers 40,500. The tribe of Manasseh, his division numbers 32,200. And the tribe of Benjamin, 35,400. All the men assigned to the camp of Ephraim, according to their divisions, number 108,100. So now, this group goes, the tabernacle goes, and you people get in line. You follow the tabernacle. You follow the Levites. Lastly, we get to the great north. All right? The great north. So, on the north will be the divisions of the camp of Dan. Under their standard, the leader of the people of Dan, Eleazar, son of Ammishaddai, there I got it, his division numbers 62,700. From the tribe of Naphtali, 53,400. And from the tribe of Asher, 41,500. Total, 150,600. So what you have, three tribes, tabernacle, three tribes. And this group back here, they are the rear guard. They guard the tabernacle from the rear. So you can see how God has arranged this even before, it's going to be a good while before they march. But he's starting to lay these things, these patterns, into place so when the time comes to move that tabernacle, they can move. As simple as that. So, these are the Israelites, counted according to their families. All those in the camps, by their divisions, number 603,550. The Levites, however, were not counted, along with the other Israelites, as the Lord commanded Moses. And this is an important verse, the last verse in chapter 3. So the Israelites did everything the Lord commanded Moses. This was a first. You stop and think about it. The Israelites did everything that the Lord commanded Moses. We'll go through Numbers and we'll be scratching our heads. How could they forget this? Why would they do that? But God was in this thing, and he was establishing it. And he gave them the ability to obey. And his Holy Spirit is in this thing. And he gives us the ability to obey and to pursue and to live within the guidelines that he sets. Without that, we're like that mob that came out of Egypt, carrying stuff that doesn't belong to us, wanting stuff that we don't need, being jealous of people who are placed in front of us, fighting for position. But with the Holy Spirit, we become a whole different animal. I have left my notes in case you haven't known from a long time ago. All right. So the Israelites did everything the Lord commanded Moses. Now they have instructions of how to set up the camp. They have marching orders for the time when they leave Sinai. Soon in chapters 3 and 4, the Lord will detail the rules of the Levites and priests as they prepare to march. Now, what's the lesson from chapters 1 and 2? Well, the lesson, I think, is really about, Listen, about community, about how we live among one another. Now think about this. We're a church. We're a family. We're a corporate organization made up of many individuals. The community of Israel had its identity in its relationship to their God and to each other. What is our identity? Is our identity our relationship with God and our relationship with each other? Or is it something far less? Now, I'm speaking to Ray Baker. You want to take anything from this, you take it. But when I read these things, I ask these questions. And I find that I'm very far from being perfect. I need to do a lot of remedial work. I need to take better advantage of this community. I need to be more involved in this community. I need to love the individuals more in this community. I need to understand you more. I need to know you better. And how do I do that? I live life with you. Can you imagine taking $2.5 million on a camp out? I've been on a Royal Rangers camp out, and we had 30 boys. It was like, oh, my God. Take me home, right? 2.5 million people. But they had community because they were in this thing together. You know, the time's going to come when we are going to be in this thing together. We're going to be in the battle together if we aren't already in it. And it's going to be our relationship to the community, our love for one another, and the power of our God that's going to sustain us. Now, I got that out of chapters 1 and 2. Maybe you got a lot of numbers. But I saw this pattern being developed. And remember, the patterns we see here are patterns in heaven. We're not going to go up there and it's going to be a free-for-all. Hey, for this next 1,000 years, I think I'll play golf. Not so much. Here's the next thing. Each person, each man knew where was his place to be and what were his marching orders. Do you know your place in this community? Has God spoken to you with your marching orders? I'm asking myself that question. I'm going on 79 years old. I'm getting ready to pack up and leave this community, all right? But still, I'm here. What is my place in this community? What's my role? What are my marching orders? Where do I get in line? Do I get in line serving the kids over in the children's ministry? Do I get in line going on a block, adopt a block? Do I get in line painting a wall? Do I get in line welcoming somebody into the church? Ask God to show you where you are in this order and what is your position and what are your marching orders. We see in the first 2 chapters leadership. Leadership following God's directions. And because Moses followed God's directions, we find harmony, cooperation, symmetry, and organization, and purity. Listen to those again, because this is what a church needs to have. It needs to have harmony. We're talking about relationships, right? Harmony. Do I love my brother? Do I prefer my brother? I need to learn some things on that. Does it have symmetry? Do we know who we are? Do we know what our roles are? Do we respect each other's roles? Is there cooperation? Is the purity of God's holiness being observed and followed? These highlight God's relationship with his people, Israel. what he was establishing in chapters 1 and 2, he's going to carry on, and what he wants to establish here at Monroeville Assembly. So, the next time you read Numbers, don't get hung up on the numbers. Remember, you're in the wilderness. You're on a journey. Get in line. Do what God's called you to do. Be blessed. Thank you.